Greetings, YouTube. If every person who was sexually harassed or assaulted wrote "Me Too" as a status, we might give people a sense of the magnitude of the problem. Me Too is sweeping across Facebook and Twitter. Note, this is a post about sexual harassment and assault. And that last bit is known as a trigger warning. 30 years ago, it would have been known as a content advisory, and it's quite acceptable. But before I get into my personal voice being added to the Me Too campaign, I, as a perpetrator of sexual assault and sexual harassment, need to confess that I have done these things. I have sexually harassed many women in my day. I have been a person that spoke over women. I have let my personal needs and desires be more important than women, and I have coerced women into sex. Yes, I've done these things. I wasn't a feminist when I was younger. In fact, I don't think I would have called myself a feminist prior to age 40. It wasn't until I really began to get into my fourth decade that I realized the full magnitude of the problem, and that if I wasn't a feminist, I was part of the problem. But even in my 40s, as I tried to become more and more aware of the world around me and make sure that I was not part of the problem, I was still part of the problem. I was still that voice over women. I was still a person that decided that my male attention was more important than the woman in front of me. But I've made amends, and I'm continuing to work on it. I'm not done. This is not a process that just ends one day. You have to constantly make sure that you are being the ally that the women of the world need. Now, having said that, I too have been a survivor of sexual abuse. So I can lend my voice to the Me Too campaign. As a child, I was abused by my scoutmaster. And after that, I was abused by a woman who I was a babysitter for. A woman who actually took advantage of a number of men, all in the rough teenage bracket, because she needed her desires to be more important than those of anyone else's. In fact, years later, I had that woman's daughter, who I still have been known to speak to, joke to me that, because I jokingly said, you know, I wish we'd had a chance to date when we were older, and she said, I don't date men that slept with my mother. And I stopped there stunned for a second, and I leaned in and I said, I was 14. Your mother's a pedophile. And I walked away. It is what it is. It was an awkward moment, but one I had to say. And as I mentioned here on my channel, I eventually confronted my scoutmaster over it. I didn't beat him. I didn't yell at him. But I showed him that I survived. I showed him that he was less than me when it came to that particular world that we had been involved together in. That he was not in charge, and I was no longer the victim. Without ever raising my voice, without ever laying a hand on him. My wife was genuinely terrified I was going to kill the guy. And there had been a time in my life when that would have been an act of fantasy. But I moved past that. Past the violence, past the revenge. I have my therapist to help. Therapists help to be thankful for in that regard. Stevens helped me get very far in life. So I add my voice to the chorus of Me Too. I don't expect anyone else to add theirs. That's a completely voluntary option. But think about it. And if you're a man out there, think about how you can be a better ally. How you can call out other men when they say sexist and misogynistic things. How you can be an example to younger people that the feminine is just as important as the masculine. And there's nothing wrong with being feminine. Don't use gendered slurs. Asshat is a nice one. It works quite well. Douche canoe is one I also happen to like, simply because a douche is always bad. No one should ever use one. We can make the change. We can help make the world better. We can help raise the next generation so that they're not perpetuating sexual abuse, harassment, and assault. Me too.